Om Jnanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupah Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Goratushe Namaha Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna and welcome again to Sri Damodarashtakam class. I'm aware that Kartik has ended, but because we missed yesterday, we will maybe spend one more day just to resolve the Damodar Lila before we return either to Caitanya Caritamrita or we will do some discussion on the bhajans of Narottam Das Thakur. I haven't decided yet, but we will study either one of the two after this. But I just wanted to continue just the discussion we were having of the Damodar pastime so that we could nicely encapsulate it all. So we'll just go briefly through the remaining sections of this pastime. And however far we get, we will try to conclude today again, because actually, no, we won't. We'll go as far, and if needed, we will continue discussing on Wednesday. We should not think that Damodar Lila is only for Damodar Mas or Kartik. Actually, Damodar Lila we should be meditating upon throughout the year. We must meditate on Damodar Ashtakam during this month, or during the month that has just passed. But we need not we need not cease from it in the other months. It is still, we must during Kartik, but we should during the other months of the year. So it is not inappropriate. And then tomorrow maybe we'll discuss the significance of today. I didn't want to break up the order. So we'll discuss the pastime that we are observing today, maybe a little bit tomorrow. So, we were discussing last Wednesday about this pastime, and we were discussing how Mother Yashoda, how she had chased that Krishna who was very much hankering to taste her milk, which is of course condensed Vatsalya Prem. He was seeing this and he was very hungry, and so he wished to taste it, and having that desire was fulfilled. As he grabbed the churning rod and prevented Mother Yashoda from eating, or rather, no, from churning the yogurt. So by preventing her from doing this, he of course sent a message. We understand the esoteric nature of this action. And while doing this, then Mother Yashoda, of course, she attended directly to Krishna. Attending directly to him, she fed him and fed him and fed him. And Krishna actually, no matter when Mother Yashoda stopped would have always been unsatisfied, because Krishna's appetite, again, it was not breast milk that he was drinking. It was the pure devotion of his pure devotee that he was drinking. And so naturally Krishna, he would always be hungry for more. He will never be fully satisfied by the devotion that his devotees give him. It is the only thing Krishna consumes, and he always wants more of it. So, because of this, no matter at which point, Krishna always would have been having the feelings that he did have when the milk pot boiled over and all the milk poured out and plunged itself into the flames below. Why? Again, we were mentioning there's several reasons given. But overall, we must understand again that everything in Vraj is a personality. Everything is a unique individual. And so, in Vraj, the milk itself is also a unique personality. And so it became incredibly depressed, incredibly upset, because when it saw Krishna drinking Mother Jashoda's breast milk, it thought a few things. It thought, one, I'm having the darshan of the Lord, but still, I'm not being liberated from the fiery pains of samsara. My life is still giving me the terrible pains, of course, being the flame at the bottom. If even after having darshan of Krishna, I'm still feeling this torture, then surely there's no point to my life. And so he plunged into the flames and committed suicide. The other reason why is he thought, if Krishna drinks from Mother Jashoda's milk, he will never wish to consume me. Because how can I compare to the milk of Mother Jashoda? How will I be able to? I cannot. And Krishna, having tasted this, he will never wish to taste milk such as myself. And therefore, again, he also committed suicide. Because he thought, what point is there to my life? So upon doing this, Mother Jashoda, she quickly ran because she did not want the preparation she was making for Krishna to be spoiled. But Krishna, he thought, look how I am mistreated. Woe unto me. I have the roughest life of all personalities because I am not even being fed by my mother. I am still hungry. She has abandoned me, even though I am so incredibly hungry, even though I'm experiencing such intense appetite. And so with this, he became very angry, and he smashed the pot. And smashing the pot, he went and he stole some butter. And taking the butter, he distributed it out among the monkeys and all of these other personalities. And we were discussing earlier how this is very difficult for the non-devotee to understand. The great yogis, the great gyanis, they will struggle to understand how the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is Om Purnam Madaha Purnamidam, Purnat Purnam Mudachyate, Purnasya Purnam Madaya, Purnam Eva Vishishyate. That Supreme Lord who is complete in every respect. This text, Om Purnam Madaha Purnamidam, this one, actually it is explained in different ways. We know that Srila Prabhupada, he renders it as being regarding the Supreme Lord and the material world coming out from him, which makes very much sense, and it makes a lot of sense in respect to the flow of the text. We know the later texts are very much discussing the nature of the Supreme Lord and the material nature which he permeates, and the fullness that it has for the quotas and the necessities for all beings. However, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he describes this as referring to the Supreme Lord and all the Supreme Lord's expansions. So we have the Supreme Lord Krishna, or instead of referring to the material world which comes from Krishna, rather it refers to all of the avatars and expansions which come from Krishna. Because even though they are expanding out from him, even though they are parcels coming from him, they are still complete within and in of themselves. So that Supreme Lord is complete. And yet, what do we find here? He is hungry. He is hankering for milk. He is hankering for his mother's breast milk. How can we understand this? It's so confusing. Elsewhere, we read in Bhagavatam that Yamaraj, he says, forget about Krishna. Even Krishna's devotees, he has no authority over. Even Yamaraj, the judge of dharma, even he has no authority over Krishna's devotees. What to speak of Krishna? And yet here we find Krishna breaking all of the ethical rules by stealing. How can we understand? And again in the Ishopanishad we hear Aneja dekam manaso javiyo naina deva apnuvan purvamarshat tadhavato nyan atyeti tishtat tasminapo matarishva dadhati. We hear that the Supreme Lord, maintaining himself within his abode, he is faster than the mind and can completely outrun all of those who are running. Even the powerful demigods cannot approach him. He is in one place, and yet he controls all of the various demigods, supplying air, wind, etc. No one can compete with him in his great excellence. We hear this in Ishopanishad. And yet here we find that Supreme Lord who can outrun all those running. He's looking around in fear that Mother Jashoda might be chasing after him. And she is chasing after him, sneaking up behind him. She is approaching him. And she is getting ready to capture that Krishna. How can this be understood? It cannot be understood through knowledge, and it cannot be understood through any means. Only by one way. Only by devotion can these pastimes be understood. Not through meticulous study of Shastra, not through meticulous perfection of Ashtanga yoga practice, not by any single form of any single discipline, only purely by what? By the execution of devotional service can this be achieved. Great mysteries, great paradoxes that can only be reconciled within the heart of devotion. So, after chasing after him, she found him, and seeing his tears pouring forth, Mother Jashoda, she began to feel very merciful, very soft-hearted upon seeing her son cry like this. And so she dropped the stick she was chasing with and decided not to chastise him. She decided to chastise him very softly. And chastising him very softly, she decided, though, I will tie him up. And going to tie him up, she took a rope. And this rope, no matter how hard she tied, it would always be 2 fingers too short to tie Krishna. And she would try again, and again, and again, and again. And other gopis, the elderly gopis, they were amused seeing Mother Jashoda's attempts at trying to bind Krishna. But she was still trying again and again and again, and she was not successful. No matter how hard she tried. She was not able to complete her pursuit. Why? Because, in fact, all of the Shaktis, all of the potencies In all of reality, they were working against her. All Krishna is the Shaktiman. He is the source of all Shaktis. And all potencies, all Shaktis, they reside within him. And residing within him, they all came out to defend Krishna. They all came out in order to protect Krishna, to make sure that Krishna is not bound by Mother Yashoda. And so, as she was trying, and she added more and more rope, she was not able to tie Krishna because every potency in reality was working against her. However, what did Krishna see? While she was doing this, Krishna saw so many different aspects of her hard labor. He saw that she was laboring and working so hard. Svamatu svinnagatraya visrasta kabaras rajaha drishtva parishramam krishnaha kripayasit svabandhane. He saw his mother's body being covered in sweat and the falling flowers coming from her hair. Because he saw his mother all fatigued and worn out, his heart began to become filled with compassion. And then he said, yes, I will be bound. The Kripa Shakti, which has come out, Kripayasit Svabandhane. This Shakti is more powerful than all of the other Shaktis combined. And because of this, they were all conquered. And then finally, Mother Yashoda was able to conquer Krishna. Why? Because Krishna's heart melts upon seeing his devotees exert themselves and express their devotion. The Kripa Shakti can conquer all of the other Shaktis combined. Which is why we should have some confidence, as difficult as spiritual life can be, as many obstacles can appear before us. If we truly obtain the mercy of the Lord, there is no meaningful obstacle for us. There is no meaningful obstacle that can hold us back. And therefore we should have faith and confidence that if we pray, Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu, Doya Koro More, if we pray like this, or if we pray to the spiritual master who has full access to Krishna's mercy, Haha Prabhu, Prabhu Koro Doya Deho More Pada Chaya. If we pray like this, then there is no force in reality that can hold us back. Namaste Sudamne Spura Dipti Damne Tadi Doyarayatha Vishwasya Dhamne. The pure devotees, they've conquered all of reality because they've conquered the very foundation point of cosmic existence, which is to say Krishna's transcendental belly. And so, evam sandarshita hyanga harina bhritya vashyata svavashena pi krishnena yasyedam sheshvaram vashe. This whole universe, Vishwasya Damne, Vishwasya, this whole universe, including the great demigods like Shiva, Brahma, Indra, all of them, they are all under the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Bhagavan Krishna. Yet, the Lord is not the Ishvar of everything. The Lord is the supreme controller of everything except for his devotees. His devotees conquer him. And this is what is being shown here. How great and how powerful is Lord Indra. In Govardhan Lila, we can see that if it was not Krishna he was up against, but anyone else, Gokul would have been destroyed. This is the potency of Indra. Lord Brahma, he is actively working. Constantly in every universe, each Brahma is working. And we can see in our universe what great work he has done. He has constructed all of the planets and all of the species that we see around us, all constructed by the transcendental hand of Brahma. This is the potency of Lord Brahma. And Shiva, what to speak of Shiva? Shiva is in a category of his own. He is the highest of all the demigods in a sense, because he is not strictly speaking a demigod in the same category as Indra and Brahma. Shiva is the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, merged with Maya. When Maya mixes, we can actually understand that Shiva is in fact the glance of Mahavishnu. We know Mahavishnu, he does not directly touch Maya in order to begin material existence. He just glances at it. We can understand that if the glance itself is personified, it is personified as Shiva. So Shiva himself personifies the glance of Mahavishnu, which is why we can reconcile. Sometimes we hear it mentioned in Shastra that Advaita Acharya, is Mahavishnu. And this is what we most commonly hear. But other times in Shastra we can hear it said that actually Advaita Acharya is Shiva. Maheshwar. How to reconcile? We can reconcile if we understand that the very glance of Mahavishnu is Shiva. And in this sense, Advaita Acharya is both personalities. So, the glories of Shiva are immense. And ultimately, the very destruction of this fantastic work that Brahma has composed is left to Shiva. So what power, what control do they have? And yet, they could not dream to manifest the control, the power, the potency that Mother Yashoda was demonstrating by binding Krishna, who is the controller of all of those personalities. That personality controls those three individuals with so much immense capability has been bound by the simple cowherd woman, Mother Yashoda, thinking that supreme controller to be only her son. And then what happens? What do we hear? We hear Nemam Virinsho na bhavo Nashrirapyanga sanshraya Prasadam lebhire gopi Yattat prapa vimuktidat. We hear that all of those personalities, and not even Shri, the goddess of fortune, are able to obtain the great mercy that Mother Yashoda received by being bound by the Lord. Now we should not think that Krishna is directly the servant of Mother Yashoda. We should not think of it this way. Rather, we should think, as Prabhupada mentions in his purport, Ekole Ishwar Krishna Arsho Bhrito, that the only Supreme Master is Krishna and all others are his servants. We should not think that Mother Yashoda is not the servant of Krishna, but we should understand that Mother Yashoda, by her service, she has become superior to Krishna. She remains a servant throughout, But her elevated position is that as Bhritya, as servant, Krishna has become subordinate to her. So we should understand this. There are some Bhrityas, some servants, who Krishna becomes subservient to. And there are some which don't. Another important point is we find 3 mentions of na. Na imam, na bhavo, na shrir. Whenever it is mentioned 3 times, whenever there is repetition like this, there is emphasis on it. We must understand that very, very few people in the cosmos have access to that great, great mercy that Mother Jashoda had access to. Another example is yada yada hi dharmasya. Again, yada yada. It is repeated twice. And it is repeated twice for good reason. The reason being that Mother Jashoda's type of bhakti, Mother Jashoda's Vraja bhakti, is incredibly rare. And so the emphasis was being made that most personalities in existence do not have access to such elevated intimacy and therefore such elevated blessings. Nayam sukhapo bhagavan dehinam gopika sutaha jnaninam chatma bhutanam yatha bhakti matamiha. And so, therefore, to emphasize this point, why was that emphasis being made? Na. That point was being made because Krishna, who is Mother Jashoda's dear son, is only accessible to those who are having rag tendencies. Raja bhakti, rag, spontaneous devotional service, in the mood of those of Vrindavan. He is only accessible to those people, not to those who will come up with all sorts of intellectual means to understanding the Supreme Lord. And not those who attempt to attain the Lord by fasting and other austerities. And most certainly not those materialists who believe themselves to be their body. Krishnastu grihah krityeshu Vyagrayam matari prabhu adrakshid arjunau purvam guhyakau dhanadatma jau. So Mother Jashoda, she left him. And Krishna, he was being left with 2 twin Arjuna trees. Remember, we were discussing a while ago in Sanskrit there's the jewel. Kuveratma Jao, the jewel. So here we have Arjuna, the jewel. So there he was left. And he saw these sweet 2 twin trees known as the Yamal Arjuna. And of course we know these 2 trees have a very important background. Prior, in their previous birth, they'd been the 2 sons Nalakuvara and Manigriva. And they had incredible opulence and fortune. However, for something that will be discussed now, they were cursed to live as trees. Now we must take a point, a purport, an understanding from the text discussing Mother Jashoda's being worn out, Mother Jashoda's sweat, Mother Jashoda's exertion. We should not think that devotional service will come cheaply or easy to us. Yes, Krishna is bound by the bhakti of his devotees. But he is not bound by the bhakti of those people who do not have a sincere, earnest desire for devotional service, or who do not have an intense affection and love for him. We should be as intent as Mother Yashoda was to repeatedly, even though it does not work, attempt to bind Krishna with rope. Again and again we should go to Krishna, trying to bind him. Again and again and again, just as Mother Yashoda did. Not ceasing, not ending one's efforts. Going continuously and continuously and continuously. Even Dhruva Maharaj, who was not aiming for something even remotely as high as Vraja Bhakti, what great austerities did he perform? The austerities are not so necessary for us, but the resolution, the intensity of desire is so important. The intensity of desire to have our respective goals is the most important. How can we expect to obtain Vraja Bhakti by just observing Ekadashi when it is convenient to us? With such little, even the Mayavadis observe Ekadashi. With such little desire, with such little impetus, how can we genuinely have any chance? I remember once I was hearing one devotee, she got upset because another devotee told her, "You will never," she said, "Oh, I'm upset with you, so I'm going to curse you. You never go back home, back to Godhead." And of course, it's not an appropriate thing to say. And likely a person who would get upset and say things like that, unless they're the spiritual master, it's very unlikely that they actually have the potency to curse somebody like that. But I remember thinking, this person never reads Prabhupada's books, maybe follows Ekadashi every once in a while, doesn't chant their rounds, has no virtual understanding of the philosophy. Practically, of course, theoretical understanding means nothing, but practical understanding means everything. So this devotee does virtually nothing, has no understanding of what Krishna consciousness is, and has no practice of it either. And I thought, what's the point of getting upset? That person is merely just confirming the truth anyways. Even if she were to bless you, that other person, you would not go back home, back to Godhead. Because you are not attempting to go there. So many people, they have so many ideas. They say, "Oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. I don't see the point of this. I don't see the point of that. I want to do this. I want to do that." And that's very well and good. Go ahead and do it. Go ahead and don't do it. But the fact of the matter is, those things you do want to do, they bind you to this material world. And those things you don't want to do, of course, that are enjoined in spiritual life, are the things which help you be bound to the spiritual world. So everyone has a freedom to do as they wish, but they have no entitlement to Vraj. If they wish to perpetuate those activities which bind them to this material existence, then they can knock themselves out. But they will remain bound to this material existence. So we should have this same intensity as Mother Yashoda had. Continuously coming again and again and again and again to bind Krishna. This should be the strength, the intensity of our desire. Narad Muni, he came. Narad Muni, he came to Dhruva Maharaj and he glorified him. The intensity of desire he had. We should be at the point where Narad Muni or some of the other great devotees will glorify us for our intensity to wish to attain Krishna. Once we have that greed, then we may obtain. And so we will hear about these two Arjuna trees. Because originally, they were sons of the great Kuvera, the treasurer of the demigods. And they had been elevated to the association of Lord Shiva. And they had a lot of pride to go along with this. And filled with pride, they wandered around in the garden that was surrounding Kailas. On the bank of the Mandakini river. And in this area, they used to drink lots of liquor, a special type of liquor, Varuni. And drunk on this Varuni, they had lots of many women surrounding them who were singing after them. And so like this, they would go on completely intoxicated. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Kamaistair hrita jnanaha prapadyante nyadevataha. Those people who are not devotees of Krishna have a taste for women, wine, and so forth. Because they are hrita jnana. They have no sense. And so they would go around, and in the Mandakini Ganga, they would enjoy these girls, just like elephants playing with female elephants in the water. However, one day, by great fortune, Narad Muni appeared, and seeing them intoxicated, he understood what was going on. The young girls, who were very much naked, and I'm sure we can read between the lines about what was happening here, became very ashamed seeing the great Narad Muni before them. And they quickly covered themselves up, thinking, we do not wish to be cursed by a great personality such as Narad. But Kuvera's sons, they did not cover themselves up. They remained naked, thinking, who is Narad? We are so great. And so then, Tau drishtva madira mattau Shri madandhau surat majau Tayor anugraharthaya Shapam dasyan idam jagau. Seeing these two sons of Kuvera naked and filled with an intoxication, not just of alcohol, or rather of Varuni, but of their ego. Narad Muni, he gave them a great curse in order to deliver them from this bondage of their false ego. And he spoke a great condemnation of their terrible activities. And he spoke some great philosophy, but we will not discuss it, because I will conclude the pastime today. He spoke about the nature of being attached to sense gratification, and how a sinful person is no better than an animal. And he speaks of the glories of poverty, because in poverty one understands so much more than one understands in a rich condition. One has much greater realization. And speaking about the nature of the folly of wealth, of alcohol, of material sense gratification, speaking about all of these things, Narad Muni, he then said, Tadaham matayor madhya Varunya Shri Madandhayoho Tamo Madam Harishyami Strainayor Ajitat Manoho. These two people, therefore, after having established this truth about the nature of wealth and false ego, who are drunk on Varuni, we find in the Sanskrit it says Madhya, because another name for Varuni is Madhvi, and unable to control their senses, have been blinded by the pride of celestial opulence, and have become attached to women. But I will show mercy unto them and relieve them of their false prestige. And then he spoke very nicely, the curse, which, as I was mentioning in our discussion of Damodarashtakam, when the great devotees curse one, most of the times it works out to be a blessing. And what curse did Narad Muni speak that was actually a great auspicious blessing? Yadimao lokapalasya putrao bhutva tamah plutao navivasasam atmanam vijanita sudurmadao Atorhata sthavaratam syatam naivam yata punaha smriti syanmat prasadena tatrapi mad anugrahat. Vasudevasya sanidhyam labdva divya sarachchate vritte svarlokta lokatam bhuyo labdha bhakti bhavishyataha. Nalakubara and Manigriva, who are the great sons, who are not the great sons, who are the sons of the great Kubera. Even though they have this great birth, they're filled with false prestige and the madness of alcoholic beverages. Or rather, the level of the intoxicating liquors. And therefore they are very fallen. So they are completely naked, without any awareness of their nakedness. Because trees are always naked and yet somewhat unaware of what goes on. These boys will be cursed to become trees. However, in order that they understand the point, the lesson of their sinful activities, I will allow them to keep the memory so that they can learn their lesson. Now one may wonder, why doesn't everyone keep memories of their past lives? Why doesn't everyone remember them? Surely we should all remember what we have done wrong so we can learn the lesson. There are two reasons why. One is that actually we should realize that if we remembered all of our past lives, virtually all of our actions contribute to our karma. If we remember all our past lives, it would be too traumatic. We would not survive the PTSD, so to speak. It would be very traumatic for us to remember all of the terrible, terrible things we have experienced. Furthermore, we should also realize that we are in this material world again because we wanted to lord it over, this material nature. And therefore, we cannot fulfill this desire. We cannot fulfill this wish to lord it over material nature. If we keep on having memories of how we were not able to lord it over. We are given forgetfulness in order that we might continue our fantasy that we are the Lord and conqueror of this nature, even though we most definitely are not. So Narad Muni, he said, but in this special case, I wish for them to remember. However, the real mercy I'm giving them is that after 100 years of the demigods, which, need I remind you, is much, much longer than our 100 years, they will have darshan of the Supreme Lord, Vasudev, and they will revive their true position as what? Jiber Sharup Hoy Krishna Nityadash, servants, devotional servitors of Krishna. And so, again, in order to fulfill the words of his great devotee, we must remember Krishna practically does everything not even because he wants to, but because it is pleasing to his devotees. Because his devotees will be pleased by such activity, Krishna does them. So much. Why did Krishna appear as Nrsimhadev? To please and to fulfill the word and the promise of Lord Brahma. Why did he appear from the pillar? To fulfill the words of his devotee, Prahlad Maharaj. Like this we can understand. Krishna does most things in order to satisfy the will and word of his devotee. And Krishna says this, Devarshir me priyatamo yadimao dhanna datmajo tattatha sadhayishyami yadgitam tan mahatmana. I have nothing to do with these rich sons of Kubera. However, my devotee, Narad Muni has desired that this happen. So I will do this. And so Krishna, he stood between the two Arjuna trees. And with the mortar stuck onto his back, he pulled through. And then Bale na nishkarshayatan va gulukhalam tad damodarena tarasot kalitangri bandhao nishpetatuhu parama vikramita vepa skandha pravala vitapo kritachandasham shabdao. Dragging the mortar behind him, Krishna uprooted fully the two trees. And then the two trees, with all of their leaves and branches, fell down, echoing a great crash heard by everyone. And so, at that location where those two Arjuna trees had fallen finally, the two personalities appeared, Manigriva and Nalakuvara, like fire personified as spirits, with effulgence emanating in all directions. And bowing down, they offered obeisances to Krishna, and with folded hands, they spoke great prayers. Krishna Krishna Mahayogim Tvam Madhya Purusha Paraha Vyakta Vyaktam Idam Vishvam Rupam Te Brahmana Viduhu. Oh Krishna, Mahayogi, you are the greatest of all of those with mystical, opulent mysticism. You are the original personality, the cause of all causes, immediate and remote, and you are beyond the material creation. All of the Lord Brahmins know that you are everything, and that this cosmic manifestation, in its gross and subtle aspects, is your form. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Controller of everything. The body, life, ego, and senses of every living entity are your own self. You are the Supreme Person, Vishnu, the imperishable controller. You are the time factor, the immediate cause, and you are material nature, consisting of the three modes, passion, goodness, and ignorance. You are the original cause of this material manifestation. You are the super soul, and therefore you know everything within the core of the heart of every living entity. O Lord, you exist before the creation. Therefore, who, trapped by a body of material qualities in this material world, can understand you? O Lord, whose glories are covered by your own energy, you are the Supreme Original Personality of Godhead. You are Sankarshan, the origin of creation, and you are Vasudev, the origin of the Chaturvyuha. Because you are everything and are therefore the Supreme Brahman, we simply offer our respectful obeisances unto you. And so then they begin to glorify the pastimes of the Lord, and glorify Him constantly. And what do they say? They say something very specific. How do they respond to the fact that Narad Muni cursed them? Many people would be upset if Narad Muni cursed them. But what they said was, Anujani hi nau bhumamsh tavanuchara kinkaro darshanam na bhagavata risherasi danugrahat. We are always servants of your servants, especially of Narad Muni. So they said from this experience they learned to become servants of the devotees, not to become angry. And so they say, please give us permission to leave for our home. It is purely the mercy of Narad Muni that we are having your transcendental darshan. So like this, Like this they prayed. And what did Krishna do? Krishna, he allowed this. And what did he say? He said, Gyatam mama puraivaita drishina karunatmana yachri madandhayor vagbhir vibramsho nugraha kritaha. My great devotee, the great sadhu Narad Muni, is so merciful. By his curse, he has shown great, great favor to you. Although you fell from the planet Svargaloka and became trees, you were most favored by him. I knew of all of these incidents from the very beginning. When one is face to face with the sun, there is no longer darkness for one's eyes. Similarly, if one is able to see a sadhu, a devotee, then one will no longer be subject to material bondage. And so Krishna, he wished for them to return home, and he told them to depart and go away. And in this way, Krishna liberated these two brothers. And this will conclude our study of both Damodarashtakam and Damodar Lila. But before we conclude for today, there is just one final point that I wish to draw upon. And it is a question we may naturally have. Krishna, he says, Gyata mama puraivaita drishina karunatmana yachri madandhayor vagbhir vibramsho nugraha kritaha. I knew of all of these incidents from the very beginning. If he knew about all these incidents from the very beginning, why did Krishna take so long to liberate these two brothers? The reason why is that Krishna did not know what it is like to be bound up like they were. He knew they were there, but he had not experienced yet. This is, by the way, the explanation of Hari Suri. He knew that they were bound up, but he did not know the pains of what it is like to be completely bound up and unable to move. He did not know what it is like to be cursed to be like a tree. Only when he was tied up by Mother Yashoda did Krishna realize this. And then he was able to have some empathy and then some sympathy. And then at that point he thought, oh, now I know how difficult this is. So now I will fulfill the promise because my empathy for these poor brothers is most strong now. This is why Krishna did this at this point. Very sweet and very much in line with the understanding we have been stressing over this past month of studying Damodarashtakam and Damodar Lila. That Krishna of Raj is so, so sweet and acts in a way that only devotees can begin to grasp. Shri Shri Radha Damodar ki jai, Shri Shri Kartik Masa ki jai, Shri Sanatan Goswami Pada ki jai, Shri Shri Damodarashtakam ki jai, Shri Hari Bhakti Vilasa ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Shri Radha Damodar ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Krishna Book ki jai, Shri Damodar Lila ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol, Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai, Hare